morning, everybody, or whatever time of day it is. Let's go over number 3 that I asked you to do for me. So first, let's do vertex form. So vertex form focuses on how the vertex got to this location when the parent's vertex is here at 0, 0. So how did the vertex get here? It went right 2 and up 1. Well, if you ever want to make the graph go left or right, then you're going to need parentheses. So I'm going to have a set of parentheses. And to make it go right, do you remember, is it a plus or is it a minus? It's a minus. Don't forget your squared on the outside. And then to make it go up or down, that number goes in the back, and up would be a plus. So plus 1 to make it go up 1. Now, let's check on Mr. A. I know it's going to be negative since the graph is opening down. So I'm going to go to the vertex. I'm going to go right 1. And what do I have to do to hit the graph? I have to go down 1. So that means my A is a negative 1. Okay, factored form. This has to do with where the graph touches the x-axis. And the graph is touching the x-axis at a positive 1, and the graph is touching the x-axis at a positive 3. So since it's touching the x-axis twice, there's going to be 2 factors. So I'm going to need 2 sets of parentheses. If it touches at a positive 1, the factor is x minus 1. And if it's touching at a positive 3, the factor is x minus 3. And then A, right 1, down 1, is once again a negative 1. Okay, so this is the newest bit of information to you guys, the vertex form and the factored form. And then this stuff over here is the old stuff. So to get to the vertex from 0, 0, we go right 2, up 1. So that's the point 2, 1. It's the highest point of the graph, called a maximum. And how high is it? It is 1 high. Remember, the y-coordinate to the vertex is always the max or min. The axis of symmetry is always the vertical line that splits the parabola in half. All vertical lines are vuxes, so it's going to be x equals, and what's your x? Everywhere right here. Your x is a 2. And remember, it's always going to be the same as the x-coordinate to the vertex. Okay, zeros, that's where the graph touches the x-axis. They're called zeros, roots, x-intercepts, and solutions. So we've got 1 and 3. So x equals 1 and 3. The y-intercept is where the graph is touching the y-axis. And the graph is touching the y-axis right there. So that would be the y-intercept, which is the point 0, negative 3. And then domain and range. This graph is going forever to the left, forever to the right. So the domain is all real numbers. The graph is only going forever down. So the highest y is up here at a 1. So the y starts out equaling a 1. And then when the graph goes down, the y's get smaller. So that's how your number 3 should have turned out to look. Okay, we're going to practice vertex form and factored form just a little bit more. And then I think we'll practice domain and range just a little bit more too. All right. So this is called More Practice with Factored and Vertex Form. And I've got this linked on the Canvas calendar, so of course you could always take a look at it. Okay, I'm actually, instead of starting with 1 and 2, I'm actually going to start down here with 3 and 4. And that's because number 4 is a little bit different. Is it different? Yes, number 4 is just a little bit different. And so that's one reason why I wanted to do these 2 instead of 1 and 2. All right, so vertex form. It's about how the vertex got to this location. So from 0, 0, it only went down 4. So since the graph didn't go left or right, there will not be parentheses. So this time it's just going to be a regular x squared. So the only time we have parentheses is if the graph made a left or a right motion. And quadratics always have the squared, so that's why you need that. So to make it go down 4, I need a minus 4 in the back. And then let's see what the A is. So I go right 1 and up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So my A is a 4. Okay, factored form. This has to do with where your graph touches the x-axis. So it's touching over here at negative 1, and it's touching over here at positive 1. So since it's touching twice, I'm going to have 2 sets of factors. So when it touches at negative 1, it's going to be x plus 1 for the factor. when it touches at positive 1, it's going to be x minus 1. And hopefully everybody realizes that it's going to be the opposite signs at this point. And so if you didn't, I'll just show you again. If I was to set x plus 1 equal to 0 and solve that equation, I would have to subtract 1, and that would give me negative 1. So see how when it was x plus 1, I got negative 1 for an answer? That's why you have to switch the sign. And if you were to set x minus 1 equal to 0 and solve that equation, you would add 1 to both sides, which would give you x equals positive 1. So see how when it was x minus 1, I got positive 1 for an answer? So that's why you have to switch the signs. All right, and then the a is still a 4, just like it was before. Okay, and then I want to do domain and range, just to practice those. So domain, this graph goes forever to the left, forever to the right. So the domain is all real numbers. And let's look at range. Do you know what the y value is, where it starts? The y value starts at a negative 4. And then when the graph goes up, 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 what happens to your y's? They get bigger. Okay, let's move on to number 4. All right, vertex form. This is how the vertex got to its location from 0, 0. So it went left 1, up 2. So left 1, up 2. So this time, since we have a left motion, we will have parentheses with the squared on the outside. So anytime there's a left or right, we'll have parentheses. So to make this go left, do you know what symbol you use? Plus or minus? You're going to use a plus. And to make it go up 2, you're going to have a plus 2. All right. Now, this one is different for the first time, and you can't really tell those points, so I'm just going to help you out. This graph is supposed to go right 1 and down a half, or left 1 and down a half. I can tell it goes right 2 and down 2, but I don't want to know what happens after it goes right 2. I want to know what happens after it goes right 1. So after it goes right 1, it goes down a half. And so that was kind of hard for you to see on this graph. But since it goes right 1, down a half, then that means your A is a negative 1/2. So factored form, the graph touched the x-axis at a negative 3, and it touched it as a positive 1. So since it touched at a negative 3, I'm going to have x plus 3 in parentheses. And since it touched at a positive 1, I'm going to have x minus 1 in parentheses. Just a second, Colin, I'll be right there. And then my A, once again, is a negative 1/2. Okay, let's do domain range real fast. So domain, what do you think? All real numbers, forever to the left, forever to the right. Very good. I know, baby. I'm going to right there. Okay, and range, what's the highest y? The highest y is a 2. And then what happens to your y's when they go down? They get smaller. Okay, so what I want you to do for me is I want you to do these first 2 problems. And when you're done, I want you to take a picture of your work and post to Canvas. Oh, and I do want you to do domain and range for both of these 2. So domain and range. So find me vertex form, factored form, domain, and range. And when you're done with that, you're done with my class for the day.